you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today we are going to talk about customer transformation. And that may be a new term to some of you, but I can guarantee you, and we might look at it from several different angles, but if you can transform your customer's life, you've got a customer for life. I want to welcome Chris Hood. He's a keynote speaker and thought leader in digital strategy. He boasts over 3 decades of experience in online development. He is the author of Customer Transformation. He provides a roadmap to customer alignment and business value. He articulates a transformative 7-stage strategy, and hopefully he'll touch on that today. His focus is on aligning customers' evolving needs and has seen an application across various industries, including financial, healthcare, retail, and nonprofit sectors. Currently, Chris shares his insights on the Chris Hood Digital Show, helping businesses worldwide accelerate their digital potential. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Well, thanks for having me. Excited to talk about this.
You know, I remember the first time I heard the word transformation. And the person who was speaking on stage, he used 2 words, transactional and transformational. And I remember thinking to myself when I heard the word transformation and how it allows you to get more business, keep more business, and charge more for your products and services. I thought, oh, that's what I need. I had been doing my business in a transactional world. And in a transactional world, you know, you're trading time for money and you can only earn so much money depending on how much time you could spend. So it was a totally new way of thinking about how to do my business. So when I saw today's topic, Chris, I was excited because it's not one that we've covered yet on the show. So I'm going to start off just asking you the really simple question. What is customer transformation?
Well, customer transformation is a strategy. It's a business strategy that looks at your customers and recognizes that your customers are usually the ones that are transforming first. And then your organization has to understand that to be able to continuously keep up with it. So as they are continuously transforming, as we all are as human beings continuously transforming, your business has to be able to analyze that, recognize it, adapt to it, and transform to keep up with those demands.
That's definitely not the way I thought you were going to talk about that, but I like that. Sometimes I get lost for words. Okay.
You know what's interesting? I'll just go back to even what you were talking about, transactional and transformational. Now, what's really interesting is because you're talking with authors and most of us are writing books or we're thinking about writing books. The process of purchasing a book is often transactional. I go and I buy the book. I then sit down and read it. But when you read it, if you really resonate with your reader, you are transforming their mindset. And if you compare that to a business, there's really no difference. You go in and you have a transaction, you go buy something. But once you start to really evolve the relationship and connect with them on a deeper level, that transaction can become transformational for not only the customer, but for your business. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish here is move beyond that transaction and get it to where they've got the book in your hand, they've got your product in your hand, they're reading it, and their lives are being transformed.
This is going to be a good conversation today. Chris, let's just take a step back here for a moment. And why don't you share a bit of your business story? Because you've been in this space for a long period of time. How did you get into it in the first place?
Going all the way back to one of my first jobs, I worked at a movie theater. And while I was at the movie theater, I got the privilege of making popcorn and taking tickets at the door and cleaning auditoriums with all the popcorn that is now on the ground. And what I loved about that job was I got to watch movies. Obviously, got to watch movies for free. So all of my days were spent in the movie theater, either selling popcorn or sitting down and watching a movie. And my love for movies and, more importantly, storytelling just emerged. And then as I
Yeah.
started to move forward, I often tell the story of I got to college and I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'll tell you right now, I'm still trying to decide what I want to be when I grow up. But I had two choices. I either had to, go into technology or go into the movies. Well, my passion was in the movies and technology was a side project. And so I said, yeah, let's go into the movies. I don't know if I necessarily made the right decision, but what I started to notice is as the internet started to grow and as new media started to materialize online, there was a direct correlation between entertainment and business or technology and the way we connect with people online. It's a form of entertainment. Even you and I were having a conversation before we started, and you said, I'm getting more traction on YouTube. Well, that's a technology, that's a platform. People are engaging with you through that technology. It's a form of entertainment. Our conversation as a podcast is both learning and entertainment. And so as I began to grow my professional career, I began to bridge that gap. How do I bring this more entertainment and storytelling, marketing perspective to technologies and businesses so that they can resonate deeper with their consumers and build those closer relationships? And so all the way up until I spent the last 6 years at Google. While I was at Google, I did a lot of this activity. I left Google. I wrote a book on the same topic, which is all about what customer transformation is. It's the recognition, again, that our consumers are constantly evolving. They want to be entertained. They have to find ways of connecting with you deeper. And that the technology, the way that we can accomplish that is just the means by which to explore that storytelling and entertainment and marketing and business relationships.
Mm. Yeah, I never worked at a movie theater, but that would have been my dream job as a teenager too. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the movie theater, and sorry, Chris, I was one of those people that got excited and spilt the popcorn on the floor.
That's okay. Not a problem. We were there to clean it up.
One of the things that you talked about that resonated with me was the fact that, you know, we have to change as our customers transform. And I'm actually in that stage in my business right now where my customers are transforming and I'm transforming and growing and learning and changing as they do because, well, first of all, I want to still have a business. But secondly, it's actually been an incredible process. As I grow and change and they grow and change, and it's become a beautiful thing. And not only for me, but for them as well, as we kind of do this together, as we grow and change and learn together, it has really created strong bonds. And when you were talking about transformation, you know, one thing I was thinking about is sort of the blockbuster effect. They weren't willing to transform to what their customers needed and wanted. And as a result, there is no more blockbuster.
Yeah, what's interesting about that case is that most people, if you really sat down and talked with them, say, well, Netflix, put Blockbuster out of business, right? It was the technology that actually put Blockbuster out of business. Actually, Netflix came in and offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for something like $50 million. And Blockbuster literally laughed them out of the room. And then later, obviously, through business and strategy, Netflix grew. But the reason Blockbuster went out of business was because they refused to listen to their customers. The customers had a demand to, not go into the store. They didn't want late fees. Blockbuster was generating tens of millions of dollars annually in late fees. And I remember at one point I heard that the CEO came out and said, no, our customers love coming in and paying late fees. It's part of the process, right? But that in-store mentality, going to a brick and mortar and walking through the aisles, like I actually enjoyed doing that. But the consumer base at whole didn't want to do it anymore. And because they didn't listen directly to what their customers were telling them, they ultimately went out of business.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Though I didn't know that Netflix had offered themselves to Blockbuster. That is very interesting. Chris, I want to go into the 7 stages because I know that you've come prepared to talk about that 7-stage strategy. And so I'm going to let you loose a bit to share about that, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll go through the 7 stages real quick. So number 1 is, as you would expect, customer. You have to start with your customer no matter what. And it's really interesting because as we work through this, you'll see that there is a correlation for starting with your customer, or the reverse side, starting with your business. The last stage, number 7, is business. So everything in between, right, leads you from your customer to your business, as opposed to your business to the customer. And I'll give you an example of this. But stage number 1 is your customer. Number 2 is integration. This is your interface with how you communicate, how you connect, how your consumers connect with you. That interface is directly correlating with, whether it's a mobile device or whether it's a podcast or whether it's whatever it is, the interface. Number 3 is journey. So this is the journey that the customers go on to reach you and experience with you. Number 4 is ecosystem. This is about partnerships and the community that you build around your products, social media, internal, external communities. Number 5 is the culture. How is the culture of your organization? And is your culture customer centric? Does it recognize that the customer is the most critical thing in your business? Number 6 is technology. So we get all the way to number 6 before we even think about the technology. And then number 7 is business. So again, if you think about this in a traditional mindset, from what we call the outside in, so you're starting outside of your organization and working your way inward, you're starting with your customer. That's first and foremost priority. Your customer, how they will interface with you on a journey that you would like to build through your ecosystem and community of partners, built by the culture of your organization, leveraging technology to generate business value. That's how it goes. If we were to do this backwards, the inside out perspective, then what you would do is you have a business idea. You start to build that idea with technology. You then start to find people within, and build a team and build a company up so that you can continue to build that technology and the product that you want to offer. You try to build a community and awareness. You then try to figure out what the journey is going to be for that. You might then figure out what the interface is. And then you get to the customer and you realize that you've built something that the customer doesn't want, because that's how it often goes. Like,
yes.
Too often you have the idea and I read a post on social group just a couple of weeks ago, and somebody says, I have a business. We've built the product. Now, how do I find my customers? I was like,
yeah.
Well, scrap the entire idea, start over, and then start with your customer, because that's the reality. You have to have this rooted in some sense of reality. What do your customers want? and then figure out what you're going to build and how you're going to build it. You can't just build something, the cliche, if you build it, they will come. Yes, but they'll come if you've built something that is solving their problems and that they actually want. It still starts with the recognition and understanding of your consumer. So that's the 7-stage strategy, working from the outside in perspective. And if you do that on a regular daily basis within your organization, understand the customer, be empathetic, listen to them, survey them, include them in that process, then you should be able to naturally solve all of the other steps leading up to business value.
We're going to explore this, but first we have to take a quick ad break. Audience RTI Publishing has lots of resources, free resources for you. Listen to this quick ad about one of them, and we will be right back.
Writing and publishing a book that converts readers into client and scales your business is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Get my free checklist at bit.ly/create and scale that will show you what you need to do to have your book become a well-converting, lead-generating tool.
Chris, that reminds me of something. And I can remember one of the first times I heard what you were talking about. And it inspired me and it frustrated me at the same time. I was inspired because I felt like maybe there's a better way to do things than to try and, build things out. Like, especially even with technology today, it's expensive. Like, even as, a consultant, professional speaker, even trying to build out a proper website, not a cheap one, funnels, all this kind of stuff, it costs a lot of money and it takes a lot of time. And I've done it and had no results whatsoever from them. But when I first heard that about the customer first, figuring out that customer, what they want, what they need, it did revolutionize my business. And ultimately, I have centered my business more around that and about what the customer needs and surveying them too. And, when you're just yourself, more of a solopreneur-ish, or you've got a small team of freelancers, one of the benefits is that you can actually quickly create a product, not even have it fully scaled out yet, start selling that idea and see how well it sells first before you even put it into production. Now, that does not work for all businesses. Obviously, if you have a brick and mortar store, if you have more physical products, that's not going to work as well. But, when you are in a service-based, sort of digital service-based industry, you can actually create things with your customer in mind, test them out before you even officially launch them in your business, and see if it works with your clients. If this is something that they want, you can test it. Sometimes you can even be selling it before you officially launch it. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, there's a stat that I often use. 100% of the businesses in the world, 100% of the businesses in the world have customers. It's, even if you're a solopreneur, you have a customer. Even if you want to argue that you're a startup and you don't have customers, well, you have potential customers. You have target customers. You have customers you want to sell to, and you've recognized who those customers are, and you've begun to identify what you need to accomplish to sell to those customers. But every single business has a customer. And so if you're sitting here thinking, well, I know what they need more than they know what they need, well, then you're going to lose those customers. And it happens. It happens more than you realize. And it also happens where customers or businesses don't just listen to their customers at all. There's a couple of examples of this really recently, and I'm about to release a blog post on this very topic. So Wendy's last week said that we are going to come up with surge pricing for our menu items. Basically, we're going to charge more for a cheeseburger during rush hour than during like the middle of the day, or during lunch, we're going to charge more. And, kind of the Uber model, if you've ever taken Uber, the Uber model for Wendy's. Well, they received a ton of backlash and then later came out and said, basically, we've changed our mind. We're not going to do this anymore. So you have to ask yourself,
wonder why.
Yeah, wonder why you got backlash from your consumer base. So the question becomes is, who made the decision? Did you listen to your customer before making the decision? All of this could have been avoided simply by having the conversation with the customer first. And then you would have learned that this isn't going to go well. Let's not launch it. They wouldn't have had the PR nightmare as a result. Listen to your customer, talk to them. Kellogg's has gone through a similar thing recently where their CEO came out with a marketing campaign that said you should start eating cereal for dinner. That because of economic conditions and the hard times, it's cheaper to, buy cereal. Well, not only is it a blatant, slap in somebody's face, but the tone deaf nature of that comment suggesting that, look, we realize that you don't have a lot of money, but hey, we want your money. So spend more money on our cereal so that, we can be more profitable in this hard time, right? And yet, again, the decision was made in lieu of a conversation with their consumer base, without actually recognizing that there might be a flaw in their decision process. And so these are examples of why it is so critical to continuously, not just once in a while, but continuously have conversations with your customers. Listen to what they want, what they are saying, what they are telling you, what their needs are. And as those needs change, economic conditions are changing. It'd be one thing if Kellogg's came out and said, look, we recognize that it's hard time and we would love for everybody to have cereal at any time of the day. We're going to be reducing all of our cereal by 50% in this current condition. Man, that would have blown up. They would have made more than double what they wanted to do. But the greed of corporations gets in the way of the genuine listening to customers. And if you don't do that, as we've been talking about this entire time, if you don't do that, you will ultimately lose those customers.
When you talk about Wendy's and what you said, the thought that occurred to me, okay, so I'm going to pay more for a burger. Am I going to get better service for the burger? Am I going to get that burger faster? Or am I still going to be waiting in line forever because you don't put enough staff on and pay more for a burger that, should have been done a whole lot quicker? And to be honest, they could have achieved the same result by just increasing their prices by 1%. And nobody would have even noticed. If you're paying 20 cents more for a hamburger, oh well, that's just inflation, right? They could have done it. Nobody wouldn't have even known. They would have increased their profits and they wouldn't have had this PR backlash.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talked about sort of the greed of these companies, and to me, it's almost like arrogance to think that, they're so much better than us that they can just do whatever and we're going to accept it and go, oh, okay, your products so much, can't live without your products. Well, raw, I like Wendy's. Eat at Wendy's.
It's not just
not eat at Wendy's.
Yeah. It's not just the arrogance. I totally agree with you. But there's this level of what we call bias that's included in it, And I think what happens is you get to these executive levels and again, they just believe they know what to do. They believe they know what's right. A lot of time it's their own opinion and they want to, explore their own opinion. I think surge pricing is going to be awesome. Everybody would love this. They do it with Uber, so of course they'll do it with us. And I'm an executive, and it's my biased opinion, so I'm going to do it. And again, we've seen this happen across a lot of other companies over the last couple of years. That bias gets in the way, and then everything just goes out the door. You've got to be able to remove that. You've got to be able to actually look at the data. You've got to say, look, 9 out of 10 people don't eat cereal for dinner. So if 9 out of 10 of our customers don't eat cereal for dinner, then why are we going to go and try to promote this? Right. So that's the data that has to be rooted in your decision making, along with the continuous customer feedback. Customer feedback provides data. Data allows you to make decisions, remove the bias from the equation. And ego and arrogance is all generated from that biased opinion.
Oh, I agree. So first of all, two things. These executives are so far removed from normal, average, everyday life. They have no clue what it's like. I mean, they may struggle financially because of bad decisions, but they're not struggling to put food on the table or have to decide between food or rent or food or heat or, those types of things. So that they're totally completely removed. The other thing is, as I was thinking when you were saying, was there could have been a totally different approach to that. The approach could have been education first, right? So let's say they did want to switch more and encourage people to be eating, cereal for dinner. Now, I have to admit, I can't say that we have done that very often in our family life, but I can't say that it never happened. Rarely, but I'm sure there were a couple of nights where we just got home and went, "Oh, take the box of cereal because I'm too tired," right? But I think, better perspective would have been doing the research, understanding what would motivate people to want to eat cereal for breakfast, and then start by educating people, start introducing the concept just generally. And then over time, then you can, add a lot more advertising and things like that. But figure out why people would want breakfast. And yeah, it's probably a lot to do with financial, but maybe there's other reasons why people just want cereal for dinner.
Crazy people, I'll say. I had a girlfriend once who had a bowl of cereal for dinner, or before bed, I guess. Late night would have a bowl of cereal every night, and I could never wrap my head around it. Like for me, cereal is morning food. It's not dinner food. You don't eat cereal in the evening. It's just a no-go. But you can look at this a couple different ways. So everything you just outlined is actually stage 1 of customer transformation. It's understanding who the customer is, what their needs are, what their particular desires are. Why might they want to have cereal in the evening? What's the mentality? What are their particular problems? All of that you define in stage 1. But what's a comparison to this would be like Rice Krispies. Now, Rice Krispies is really interesting because you might go and buy Rice Krispies not just for cereal, but for Rice Krispie treats. Make a dessert out of it. If Kellogg came and started offering some sort of alternative thing to use cereal for dinner, now you've become really interesting. Create some viral concoctions that you would find on TikTok. Like, have you ever tried cornflakes on chicken? Right? That's a thing. People are doing it. So you could start to introduce alternative recipes or ways to reduce the cost by leveraging cereal in your meal planning, which would become a lot more interesting and a lot more viable for a lot of people. But that's, again, the example of what is the problem? What are you trying to solve? And then offer a solution for them, as opposed to simply offering a marketing campaign that's benefiting you by trying to sell more.
Yeah. I'm going to share a funny story about Rice Krispie Squares. So we had a group of kids. Well, we didn't. One of the churches in town had a group of kids come up from Brazil, and they were performing and doing different things. The couple that was taking care of them got sick. And so these kids ended up spending a day at our place while the wife was in emergency. They were just dealing with stuff. And we didn't have a lot of food in the house, and we lived half an hour away from the closest store. So we looked at what we had, and we had Rice Krispies and we had marshmallows and butter. So we thought, oh, we'll make them Rice Krispie squares. They're going to love this. Well, so you make up this pan, and we're expecting them to dive into these Rice Krispie squares, and they're all kind of looking at it like really strange, and they're kind of like, "What's this bland looking thing?" Right? And of course, they speak Spanish, we speak English, so there's only one person who speaks both language. So we're trying to explain to this person. The thing is, they didn't even know what marshmallows were. So you try to explain marshmallows, and then so finally we just said to them, "Listen, take this little piece and try it." Right? And the kid finally said, "Okay, I'll try it." Well, he took one piece. His mouth started moving so fast, and the pan was gone in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyway, that's my funny Brazilian Rice Krispie Square story. We've got a few minutes left there, Chris. I do want to just switch to your book there. So let's quickly go over that. In about a minute or so, talk about your book, Customer Transformation. And then I'm going to ask you the question I ask every single author who comes on the show.
Yeah. So customer transformation is the 7-stage strategy, just as we've been talking about so far today. And in the book, I outline each stage, all 7 stages. There's actually 2 chapters for each stage. It's filled with tons of case studies from Disney and Pepsi, and I'm sure McDonald's is probably in there, like tons of different companies where they demonstrated different elements of each of those stages. And then I also provide an action plan for each stage so that you can begin to go through it yourself and execute on it, a set of questions to ask you and your business and your stakeholders so that you can begin to implement each of those stages. So it's a great book. It's available everywhere. So customer transformation, there it is if you want to find it.
If you're listening to this, Chris just held up the cover of his book, and it was really quite amusing. So you're going to have to go on Amazon and look for it. Chris, so the question, what was the good, the bad, and the ugly about writing, editing, and publishing that book?
Let's see. The good was I finished it. I think that's something that we all can say is like, hey, wow, I've got it in my hand. It's an actual book. That's cool. That's always fun. The bad, honestly, I wouldn't say that there was too much bad for me in this experience. The quick story was that I left Google last year, and then really the next day said, I should write a book. And then I sat down. A lot of it I already had in my head, the stories, the case studies, everything that I wanted to really focus on. Even the framework was pretty much already developed. I just needed to sit down and write it. So I started a process of writing a chapter a week. So I went through, there's 14 chapters in here, and give or take 14 weeks, 15 weeks, I think, I was able to finish the entire book. The editing process was also, fairly harmless. I hired an external editor. I highly recommend anybody who's writing a book is to just go spend your money and hire a professional editor. It's going to come off a lot cleaner. There's a lot of things that were caught that, I would have definitely have missed. So definitely go hire somebody, spend and invest the money in editing. That would be, the best advice. So, but that process was fairly good, along the way as well. Again, nothing really ugly, but what I would also say is that I learned a lot during the process. Learning how to format, learning, structure, learning how to lay out, learning the publishing process, getting involved with, companies like Ingram Spark and Amazon Publishing. That process is probably the ugly part, because you're dealing with third parties who are going to be printing and analyzing and improving and, and paying you for royalties and everything else. Both companies have their pros and cons. Both companies at the end of the day are pretty awful in the process, but you have to deal with it. So, the ugly part is the actual publishing side. But yeah, I spent a lot of time learning that because I was interested and curious about how it was done. And then actively went and started publishing some other books. So I've got a subset of customer transformation out there now, customer transformation specifically for nonprofits. So if you're running a nonprofit organization, there is a version of this that will help you as well, with additional case studies from several different nonprofits. But yeah, a lot of good, not so much bad. The ugly is definitely in the publishing.
Yeah, one of the things I do personally at RTI Publishing, I mean, I've got a whole team of people who do stuff, but I personally upload every client's book to Amazon. And there was one day, 1/10 of an inch on the cover.
Yeah.
I was like, seriously? It would not pass the book for 1/10 of an inch. And I had to go back to my designer. And that's not always you would think it'd be easy, but it's not, because sometimes those small numbers trying to just get it right. And I was like, oh, seriously, Amazon? Like, I just want to throttle you today. But anyway, we got it fixed. We got it uploaded. We are over time. So, Chris, I won't have you do your final thought today, but I do want to make sure that people can connect with you. So how can they do that?
Easiest way to connect with me is on my website, chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com. And there you can reach out, social media, podcast, my book, everything is right there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I have enjoyed today's conversation immensely. Audience, if you're wondering where to go next, I want to direct you to episode 460, which is how to create a six-figure business from a podcast. So if you're on YouTube, you know the routine. The thumbnail is here on the screen somewhere. If you're on your favorite podcast app, you are going to be scanning back about 30 episodes. Thank you so much, Chris, for being on the show today. Audience, have a great day. And we'll see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.